In the beginning, there was no narcissist. There is only the child and his mother. The mother is unreachable, unavailable, preoccupied, punishing, or dangerously engulfing. Her gaze does not meet the child's emotional needs. It violates it, shapes it, controls it. This is the moment narcissism begins, not as a personality, but as an absence. The narcissist is born not in ego, but in void. He survives by forging a protective layer, a false self to shield him from the annihilating absence of attunement. The false self is not simply an adaptation, it is a tombstone. The true self retreats underground, exiled and unconscious, leaving a mask behind to interact with the world. When we meet the narcissist, we meet this mask. It is grand, magnetic, intoxicating, because it is made to reflect our needs. In turn, we project our longings into it, believing we have finally been seen, understood, chosen. This is the beginning of our undoing. The narcissist is not meeting us, he is reenacting his original abandonment. He is the abandoned child who now seeks redemption by merging with us, but he does so by coercing our reality to match the snapshot he has internalized. We are not loved. We are used to fix a hole that cannot be fixed. This essay is a map of that terrain. It is both personal and clinical, original and grounded, tragic and redemptive. It introduces mirrored psychic inversion theory, a new model that explains how the narcissist installs his internal world into the victim and how the victim is psychically reversed in the process. You may find yourself inside of here. If so, know this: the mirror breaks, but the self can be recovered. Mirror psychic inversion theory is a symbolic diagnostic model developed to explain the structural collapse, ego inversion, and false self construction observed in victims of narcissistic abuse. It builds on Ronald Fairbairn's object relations model and integrates Professor Sam Vaknin's work on narcissistic mirroring, cold empathy, and shared fantasy. At its core, MPIT models the symbolic journey of the victim through collapse, from early libidinal investment and the illusion of attunement to interject co-option, affective inversion, and eventual pseudo-false self formation. This collapse is not simply relational, it is symbolic, structural, and often psychotic in nature, representing a psychic inversion of the true self. The collapse begins with a libidinal idealization phase. Cold empathy is used to scan the victim, mirror their internal world, and offer symbolic attunement. But this mirroring is artificial. It is a lure. The narcissist builds a shared fantasy to extract supply, not to build the relationship. The victim unconsciously consents, stepping into a mutual fantasy that mimics love but lacks effective empathy. This is the folly adieu, a compliant departure from reality. As the fantasy deepens, the subject's anticathexis, false self, is gradually co opted. The narcissist offers conditional reflection, rewarding traits that serve their fantasy, and rejecting those that threatens it. This cold empathy, devoid of feeling but high in accuracy, reshapes the victim's internal structure. The result is a mirror loop. The subject begins to see themselves only through the narcissist's gaze. Eventually, the internal world fractures. The subject's interjects are re-encoded with contradictory commands: be true, be false, be pleasing, disappear. This leads to what M. Pitt identifies as reflexive mirrored psychic inversion, RMPI, a structural collapse in which the ego flips inside out. The self is no longer an author, it is a performer trapped in a hall of mirrors. The false self, created to survive, becomes a pseudo false identity. It mimics strength, agency, and resilience, but it is rooted in trauma. M. Pitt defines this as false self actualization, a masquerade often mistaken for recovery. In reality, it is the end point of collapse, the moment when the subject fully embodies the mirrored fantasy, no longer aware of the split. The emotional arc is equally inverted. The subject moves from libidinal seeking, connection, attunement, to anti libidinal withdrawal, shame, self hatred, rage. Empit introduces the term inverse mirrored reflex apathy, IMRA, to describe this dynamic, a death drive that simulates engagement while annihilating meaning. Cold empathy persists, but now serves contempt. Empit also differentiates between narcissistic supply and sadistic supply. Initially, the subject fuels a narcissist fantasy by reflecting the ideal. Later, as collapse sets in, the narcissist derives supply from the subject's suffering, extracting control, compliance, or humiliation. This shift mirrors the internal collapse of the subject's self esteem, agency, and object constancy. Recovery in empit is not achieved by severing the relationship alone, it requires symbolic reintegration. The fractured ego must be reassembled, not just emotionally, but structurally. This involves identifying internalized interjects, naming co opted scripts, and restoring effective access to the central ego. The self must reclaim its authorship. Empit places special emphasis on the symbolic act of reseating the ego along the vertical axis. Collapse occurs when the subject is displaced, pushed along the horizontal axis of object seeking, away from meaning, authorship, and coherence. Healing begins when the subject returns to the center, not to be mirrored, but to perceive clearly. This is the inversion of Descartes' I am thought, therefore I become. In this way, MPIT offers a complete symbolic cycle from spotting, auditioning, idealization, collapse, inversion, false self to reintegration. Each stage is mapped structurally and symbolically, offering both clinical tools and narrative understanding. The final insight of MPIT is that even in collapse, even when psychotic regression has set in, the subject is still the sane one in a crucial way. They feel the pain, the confusion, the despair, all signal that the self has not vanished. It is hidden, fractured, but still present. As the survivor says, even when we're dysregulated, we're still the sanest ones in the fucking room. This is where healing begins, not with performance, but with truth. Peace out.